What's up, guys? John Bird III here. We're back again for another video, and in today's video we're going to talk about, I would call it a forgotten technique, or a technique that a lot of people don't talk about, and we're going to talk about the Carolina rig. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because as I mentioned in previous other videos, we potentially may be changing around when we're going to be putting out these videos, because it's football season. Normally I put my videos out early Saturday morning at 10 a.m., but I may possibly change that time frame. I've been doing Saturday evenings, so but I still don't know if I'm dead set on that. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be notified on when the videos are live. But without further ado, we're gonna jump right into my Carolina rig setup. Now, I'm not no Carolina rig master. It's not one of my go-to techniques that I consistently use a lot, but it is a technique that I know works. So I'm going to talk about my setup from the rod, the reel, the line, the leader size, the weight size that I use, hook, all of that, and the baits that I tie on the back. Personally, the reason why I don't like to throw a Carolina rig, I'm going to be 100% transparent with you, and that is because a lot of people say, oh, the bait floats up in the back. That's a lie. It does not float up. Unless you're using an Elastec style bait that actually floats on its own, it doesn't float up. That bait just drags the bottom. It comes off the bottom just a tad, but that's about it. Majority of your baits stay on the bottom. So that whole theory of, oh, it floats up in the back, it's a bold-faced lie. Stop. I wish people would just stop saying that stuff. Again, unless you're using an Elastec style bait. So just keep that in mind. So anybody that say that bait floats up in the back, it's a lie. But anyway, we're going to jump into it with the reel. The reel that we use is the Team Lose Hyper Mag, and this is the Gen 1 model. So love the Gen 1, love the Gen 2. I mean, it's a workhorse reel. So on this Gen 2 Hyper Mag, I actually, and this is in 7.5 gear ratio, the line size that I have on here is 17-pound fluorocarbon, and this is Contra. So that's the line that I use on here. I've heard some people use 20. I hear some people use 15. Again, I feel like if it's dragging the bottom, I feel like my main line needs to be a little bit more stouter. But that's just me. Again, I'm not a Carolina rig expert, but I'm just talking about why it works for me. So I like having a stronger, I guess you could call it the main line, and that's what works for me. Again, 7.5 gear ratio reel, and it is super smooth. It is comfortable in hand because I love this frame. Now the new Hyper Mag, the Gen 2 model, I love that frame too, but this LFS frame has been probably one of my favorite frames that Lose has came out with, probably, but with an exception of the new Custom Pro that I got over there. But that's the reel. Now, this rod right here, we're going to talk about that. So this rod is the Team Lose Mark Rose Signature Series rod. It is a 7.5 medium heavy fast action. Just off the rip, this rod is not a medium heavy fast. This rod is definitely a heavy and a potentially close to an extra heavy. Like, it's not a medium heavy fast. This rod got a lot of backbone. Like, this legit can be a flipping stick, point blank, period. And I may use it for flipping in the future, but we're gonna see. But again, 7'5", and it is probably a great length, to be honest with you. And so it actually has somewhat of a longer butt section to it. And so normally, like when I'm dragging a Carolina rig, I kind of tuck it in under my elbow, up close to my ribs. And so it kind of has a longer butt section to it, which I like. And I think that is appropriate for whenever you're throwing a Carolina rig. And I guess that's another great thing to keep in mind. The rods are super sensitive. Like, if you haven't paid attention to a lot of my videos, majority of the rods that I have in my lineup are the Team Lose Signature Series rods. So, and they're fun to fish with. This rod series, they're not tip heavy, they're balanced very well, and they just fish really, really good. They're super durable. Like, you can beat these rods to death. I've had the Andy Montgomery bladed jig rod for 4 years now, and that rod has been through the paces, and it just continuously runs. So I love that rod. But they're great, they're sensitive, and then with the focus technology in this rod, like, it has like a reinforced tip to it. So that's what, and so you don't have to worry about like breaking the tip off of the rod. Now, if you're jamming into something and stuff like that, of course you're gonna break the tip. But like some rods you see, like they break the tip on their rods a little bit further down. But this one don't really have that issue. Got somebody riding on their motorbike. That's funny. We have these guys who doing that all the time in the neighborhood. But anyway, but again, these rods are super sensitive. They're great to have in the lineup. So if you're on the fence about finding what rod series to go with in the Lose in the Lose lineup, check out the Signature series because that's probably my favorite. Aside from the custom lights, this is my #1 favorite series that we have to offer. So leader line, my leader line, I normally go with 15-pound Contra. So I do a 17 main line and then I tie a 15-pound leader. My leaders aren't really that long. I would say they might be, I don't know, maybe 2 foot, 2.5 foot. Like, it's not a really, really long leader. So a Carolina rig is super awkward to throw anyway. And so with that leader size, I feel like that's probably the great all-around size to throw. Maybe you can go a little bit longer. I think you have to figure out what's gonna work best for you, because sometimes I've had a super long leader and I could not throw that thing whatsoever. But I've heard some guys say you gotta have a long leader or the fish just won't bite. And I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. And one of the things with the Carolina rig is that doesn't make sense to me is, if they will buy the Carolina rig, why won't they buy the Texas rig? Like, that's a question that I've consistently had, and it just doesn't make sense. I guess maybe it's the bait falling behind the weight that causes the fish to want to come and bite because they are following. It looks like the bait is chasing something. So maybe that's why, versus it being pegged, and I peg all my Texas rig and it just being drugged down to the bottom. But again, that's just thoughts that I have, and those are questions that I don't see a lot of people actually answering. So, but again, 15-pound main line. Now, when it comes to weight size, I have a couple different weight sizes that I use. And one size I'm actually testing. And so consistently I do like a 3/4. And every now and then I go up to an ounce, but I'm actually gonna be playing around with a 1/2 ounce this time. So I normally use the Strike King barrel weights. And so these weights right here, I mean, they're tungsten barrel weights. I mean, nothing fancy. That's all they are. They're tungsten barrel weights. So that's a great option. I've also seen a video. Now, this is a pretty cool tip. I think it was Mikey Balls. He did a video a while ago where he was talking about throwing a Carolina rig. And what he did was he actually took like your traditional bullet weight and he put a peg at the top and a peg at the bottom. That way he can adjust his leader. I've never done that, but I think that's actually pretty cool. So that's something I'm probably gonna have to try one of these days. But again, like, I'm not a diehard Carolina rig fan anyway. But anyway, the hooks that I use, I'm a diehard owner guy. So this is the owner offset wide gap worm hook, 3X strong. Traditionally, aside from the haymaker hook, that is my go-to hook that I use all the time. That hook is freaking awesome, and it will straight up peg them. As far as the, I guess you call them your barrel swivels, I use a size number 5, and I use the Spro ones. I mean, it's a barrel swivel. So again, like, it's nothing crazy, nothing fancy about it or anything like that. It's just, it's a barrel swivel. And essentially, that is the actual setup itself. Now, when it comes to using the baits, that is probably the, I don't want to say the tricky thing, but everybody has their favorite baits that they like to use on the Carolina rig. And so I'm gonna give you a few baits that I like to use on the Carolina rig. Now, traditionally, I use a lot of creature baits. And one bait that I'm definitely gonna actually have rigged up for tomorrow is the Rage Scound Bug in the 4-inch version. So that bait right there, that sucker there, it's gonna get bit. So that's a great bait to try to have tied on to a Carolina rig. Another great bait, and these will actually be available to you all very, very soon. The Rage Hawk. The standard Rage Hawks are available. They came out last year. But the bigger Rage Hawk, that big 4-inch version, great. So those are two baits that I will tend to use. A lot of people like to use your, I guess you can call them your brush hog style of baits. So like, again, your standard like Zoom brush hogs. If you can also tie on the Rage Game Hog, which is like a brush hog style bait. So that's another great option too. So, shoot, there it go right here. The Rage Game Hog. So again, it's smaller than your traditional Game Hog, but I mean your traditional brush hog, but again, that's another great bait that you can have rigged up as well. And they bite this little thing. And I mean, it's a straight up fish catcher. And so these are a couple baits that I'm definitely gonna have rigged up whenever I'm throwing a Carolina rig. And my tried and true freaking rage bug. Got a big Ziploc bag full of rage bugs. So that is my Carolina rig setup. But again, you got to experiment. You got to figure out what's going to work on your lake. You can experiment with what colors, whatever. I mean, you can't go wrong with your green pumpkins, your watermelon reds. If it's dirty, your black and blues. Also, when the water's dirty, if you want to use a bait that has a lot more appendages on, that's going to cause a little bit more water displacement. Hey, that's a great option too. And then for you super old school guys, put on a trick worm. I mean, that thing can get bit too. So I think sometimes when bass fishing, we get too far out in the weeds when it comes to stuff and always trying to be like super secretive and also just trying to stand out so much when, I mean, again, it's fishing. I think one thing B-Lat has said, man, we need to bring fishing back to a simplistic state. And I firmly believe that. And so I'm actually going to Lake Monticello tomorrow, and I'm going to have a Carolina rig rigged up. I'm going to go out there and try that. Try to drag around some stuff later on in the day. If I can't get like a moving bait bite first thing in the morning, top water bite, something like that. So that is the setup that I got rigged up. So that's it for today's video. But guess what? We are almost at 1,000 subscribers. So when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I got a special giveaway for that. So make sure you stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel because again, we got a special giveaway coming your way. So my boat is a mess. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I got to put in the boat. Just a bunch of, let me tell you something, tackle storage. These freaking gallon Ziploc bags, fire. So I got to get the boat together. Got to get some stuff rigged up. Got to finish rigging up the actual Carolina rig setup that I'll probably throw tomorrow and try to go out there and catch some fish. So I'm JB3. I got to get back to living the dream and rigging up some tackle. I'll catch you later.